Is in session. This is the Draft Seminar Rookie Profile Series hosted by Matt Hicks, the FF Educator, and I am joined as always by John Laub, the Gridiron Scholar. This is the John Metchie Fantasy Football Rookie Profile. John Metchie, the forgotten fantasy football rookie. We're excited to re-highlight this player that's been a favorite of the college football and Devy community now for a couple of years. Before we jump into it here, I want to make sure folks know that they can check out the Rookie Profile Series on the Rookie Big Board podcast channel, the NFL Draft Bible Podcast Network, or on the Rookie Big Board YouTube channel. We want to encourage our folks watching on YouTube to leave us a comment. Let us know how they feel about John Metchie, if they've forgotten or if they still remember the dynamic Alabama wide receiver is a key part of this draft class. You can check out more of John's work at footballdiehards.com, and you can check out all of my work, including my 2022 rookie rankings and the newly announced 2022 Rookie Big Board Rookie Guide at patreon.com/the FF Educator. John Metchie, the wide receiver out of Alabama. Let's get into it.
One word popped into my mind as I'm breaking down film over the last week again on John Metchie. And I probably watched as much film on him as any receiver because I've been watching him for 3 years. And that one word, Matt, is professional. John Metchie is a professional NFL wide receiver. He's smooth. He's good. He runs crisp routes. Matt, you want him on your team. I do not think he's the alpha male. I think he's ideally suited for a number 2, or he'd be a stupendous third receiver on an NFL team. But man, is he a great Robin to a Batman. He is just a professional receiver. This is our 6th Alabama wide receiver that we have broken down in the Draft Seminar Series in 3 years. No one's even come close. Not even Ohio State or LSU have had 6. So when you put in his teammate score, Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs, Jalen Waddle, Devonta Smith, Jameson Williams, those numbers are even more impressive. And the college football world and coaches and voters knew how good he was. He was twice named the Biletnikoff Award watch list. The last 2 seasons, he was on it. And last year, Matt, if you ask the common person, say to yourself, how many receptions did John Metchie have? I doubt anyone would come close to his 96. I bet you people would be like, oh, I don't know, 50, 40, somewhere's behind Jameson Williams. No, he had 96. How good was that, Matt? That was the 3rd most single season in Alabama history. He was 2nd team all SEC. I mean, this young man has such a good resume. He also surpassed 1,000 yards with 1,142. And I'll say one thing. He was missing the championship game against Georgia also. When I do think the table turned when Williams got hurt and literally Bryce Young had no one to throw to. If you would watch Alabama all season long like I did when Bryce Young had Metchie and Williams, Matt, but he got hurt earlier in the year. I think it was the SEC championship game, so he missed the playoffs. So this young man, they were prolific when him and Williams were on the field. Even go back 2 years ago, Matt, 55 catches, 916 yards. And this is what really blows me away. You'll see this peak. He averaged 16.7 yards per catch with Mac Jones and 6 touchdowns. His career receptions are the 7th most in program history. Alabama's good, folks. Let me just tell you. In high school, he was a 4-star prospect, 15th ranked athlete in the nation. Here's the numbers he put up. 1,300 rushing yards, 2,500 receiving yards, and 42 touchdowns in 4 seasons. Matt, I love him. He's a professional. What does your film breakdown say?
Now, when you're looking at John Metchie, I thought, John, and you came up with a better word for me than me. I thought when you were trying to say one word, it was going to be fast, because he is
Ah,
a fast wideout, right? When it comes to his acceleration ability, he can really burn in a straight line. I like that Metchie moves just as well east to west as he does running north to south. So he's a very fluid player. His speed translates well to all three levels of the field. He's an athlete too, John. You referenced it. It shows up that he was both a running back and a wide receiver in high school because he's a fluid and athletic runner. Alabama got him the ball behind the line of scrimmage with end arounds, with screens. They wanted to get him schemed into space because they trusted his ability to work with the ball in his hands. Now, in terms of route running ability, John, I think he separates well downfield with his speed. If he does get a DB that clings onto him, he does have physical handwork that allows him to create some separation later on closer to the catch. Now, he doesn't run a very dynamic route tree. It's a little simple, but I do think he could be asked to do more and get away with it. And John, I mentioned here that Alabama tried to get him the ball at the line of scrimmage a lot of the times. Sometimes it worked for John Metchie. Sometimes he thought he was more elusive than he really was. And so he ends up kind of getting caught or looking a little bit silly on his tape. So he got away with that, at the college level. I don't know that an NFL team is going to ask him to do a lot after the catch, but I don't think they necessarily need to, because I think he can do a lot before the catch. Back to you, John, to talk about some of these numbers.
you mentioned his handwork, Matt, and that's coaching at the highest levels. And that's why I kind of label Metchie a professional. He has taken to the coaching. And if you were going to look at all these Alabama receivers, he might be as technically sound, but maybe not as explosive as the other five that we have talked about. But I think his technique with his footwork, his handwork, his body, he is very good. And Matt, teammates, quarterbacks, and coaches are going to like having John Metchie on the field, because there is a reliability with this young man running routes. And you put him in my model, and it says, hello, 155 career receptions, 2,081 yards. What I like, you mentioned yards per, or you were mentioning catches behind the line of scrimmage. They use John Metchie in a lot of different ways. Remember, Waddle got hurt, and then it was Devonta Smith and Metchie were on the field, and that changed the dynamics of what the Alabama coaching staff expected out of Metchie. That's why he averaged 16.7. Career-wise, 13.4. Matt, I think he can do anything you ask him to do. Metchie will do it to the best of his ability. 14 career touchdowns with all those teammates. That's a nice number, my friend. And all the different quarterbacks. 5'11", 187, nice size, good athleticism. And look at that year. 72% catch rate, 23% team aerial dominator with Jameson Williams on the field. Matt, he's a professional second-round grade. I think he's being overlooked. What should the fantasy community know about John Metchie?
John, I have him projected as a day 2 late NFL draft selection. That's 50 to 102. So boom, right what you were saying, day 2 grade on him. And part of that is both the injury, a late season injury. I know some folks think it's ridiculous that it affects the long-term value of a player, but it does, because NFL teams fall in love with players through the combine experience, and it's a deep class, right? So in a shallow class, a healthy John Metchie might be a lock first-round selection, but I think he ends up going late day 2. That could create a little bit of value for you. In terms of fantasy football, I have him projected as a flex filler, so that's the wide receiver 3 range for a player, right? Hanging around the low 20s, early 30s here once he's fully healthy and able to produce on a week-to-week basis. I do think he ends up with late round 2 rookie value, or rookie ADP, I should say. It's going to be interesting here with John Metchie. He's somebody that a lot of folks know his name. He's been around for a while, and that creates some inherent value. But John, I'm going to end up having a little bit lower exposure to him. And it's simply because there's just so many options here in this wide open tier 2 of wide receivers. John, I have everywhere from wide receiver 6 to wide receiver 14 in a very close tier right now. And certainly that will shake up and be a little bit more broken down and separated post NFL draft. But my point here is it's going to be hard for me to have a high exposure to any single rookie wide receiver that ends up in this late round 2, early round 3 ADP, because there's a lot of guys to get excited about, right? And so I'm going to want to go ahead and get excited and get them on my roster. So I bet I end up with one or two John Metchie on one or two of my teams. John, I hope all of our listeners are getting excited for another round of rookie profiles, which will be coming their way very soon. I encourage them to make sure that they've listened through all of our earlier weeks of rookie profiles. Make sure you're subscribed, whether you're watching or whether you're listening. And as always, we appreciate you checking out